morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to The Nest. It's July 15th, 2021. I'm Jim Chu in San Francisco, California, and we're streaming live with entrepreneurs and investors from around the world. Our goal here on The Nest is to connect entrepreneurs in frontier markets with angel investors worldwide. We stream live every month, and all episodes are recorded and available on our website, untapped-global.com. Today, we're welcoming two exciting startups from Egypt to The Nest, along with two new investors and one of the most prolific angel investors in the African ecosystem. Raj, welcome back. But before we get started, a quick shout out to our partner today, Invest Africa, who we're working with to bring on new investors and also new companies, and just raising more awareness about the African ecosystem for international investors. Thanks for partnering with us. Moving on to announcements briefly. So we are now on a monthly schedule with pitch sessions like today. We hold these pitch sessions on the third Thursday of every month. And we also have a panel discussion about investing in entrepreneurship in frontier markets on the first Thursday of each month. So you'll get to hear from us twice. And in fact, even a third time, because if you like, you can sign up for our newsletter, which we talk a little bit about what's going on with Untapped, but also on what's happening with the African ecosystem in general. So you can sign up for the newsletter on our website at untapped-global.com. And somebody on the Untapped team will also be putting the link to the sign up for the newsletter in the chat box as well. All right, now over to the angels. Sanjeev, welcome to The Nest. Would you like to start first with introductions?
Yes, Jim, thank you very, very much for organizing it. It's my first in a session like this. So I'm probably as nervous as the people who are going to pitch for their business models. In that sense, we are both on the same shoes, wearing the same shoes rather. So as far as I'm concerned, I have been traveling, lived in Africa for the last 30 odd years. I've probably done transactions across 35 countries to be precise, across the African continent, across many sectors. Currently, I work with an African development institution called Africa Finance Corporation, which is a $9 billion institution which invests in large infrastructure and industrial projects across the continent. So I sit in their board and I'm in charge of their entire fundraising strategy. Personally, I, like Raj, I suppose, from time to time, I've invested my own money in interesting business models, most of which thankfully has paid me back handsomely. So I'm a great optimist when it comes to
I'd love
investing.
to hear that.
And the only thing I care to say to anybody who wants to invest in Africa is that it's no different to anywhere else. You got to be patient, you got to be engaged, and you got to bring in the right partners. And so often I see that those basic mistakes are made, where people come from outside the continent thinking that there is easy opportunities and one can be short-termistic about their thinking. And that needs to be avoided. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions for you. So since you're part of the strategy making for the African Development Corporation, to what extent do you think institutions like the AFC can provide or work with the startup ecosystem, the tech startup ecosystem in Africa?
So it's a tough question, Jim, for me to answer. I'll tell you why. Because Africa Finance Corporation was created with the principal objective of building bricks and mortar infrastructure. So we are really into ports, roads, logistics, power, mining projects, large industrial projects, etc. When it comes to the tech side of things, again, to a large extent, our focus has been on the hard infrastructure, towers, cables, fiber optic lines, etc. So in many ways for AFC, it's a new area. We haven't really ventured into it. But then wearing my other hat, which is the hat that I wear quite often, is I'm part of a family office out of Dubai, which is where my home is. And we invest as four families in different startups. And because this particular sector usually requires a leap of faith and a lot of personal engagement, and in a sense, a lesser ticket size. It probably is more suited for family offices and people like ourselves rather than the large institutions like AFC.
Gotcha. And do you see institutions like the AFC working with some of the upstream, if you will, ventures or institutions or initiatives to support tech startups?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the good things about being part of AFC is it's probably today one of Africa's best rated institutions. We are rated A3. There's nobody else better than us except African Development Bank. So on the back of it, we get a hell of a lot of support from all kinds of investors globally who are looking for an Africa play. And I always say that opens up so many avenues for us to connect different kinds of investors to different kind of opportunities in Africa, tech being one, obviously.
And what I find interesting is that, venture capital and more, if you will, the tech investing that we know tends to focus on asset light, winner take all markets, whereas the AFCs of the world are looking at bricks and mortar and infrastructure. I'm always curious how we merge the two, because in Africa and in many frontier markets, it's really all about stuff, about infrastructure, about CapEx. And so I think that's always, there's that gap there that needs to be bridged somewhere. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us, Sanjeev.
My pleasure.
Over to you, Raj.
Well, I have to always go after my dad, so that's okay. So my name is Raj Kulasingham. I wear a couple of hats. So my day job, I'm a lawyer at an international law firm called Dentons. I've been there for many years. And that's how I first fell into Africa. I was advising on infrastructure projects. In fact, that's how I got to know Sanjeev. AFC is one of our clients. We've done quite a lot of work on the infrastructure side in Africa. And I then moved to private equity, venture capital. And then latterly, I sort of decided that I would turn my attention to some other things that I was interested in. I'd always been an angel investor from very, very early stage, even 2000. I think 2001 was my first investment. And over the last 10 years, I've accelerated those investments. And over the last 5 years, it's been focused on Africa. So my portfolio today is about 35 companies, about 5 funds, split 40-40-20, 40% in Africa, 40% in the UK, and 20% the rest of the world. Love the space, made some mistakes, had some wins. I hope that the mistakes help me make the wins, and I hope to pass on the lessons from our mistakes to everyone else. I like the fact that it's a very inclusive space. Everyone is trying to do well and play each other in. So I'm excited to be here. And thank you, Jim, for giving me the opportunity.
And one question for you.
One other thing I was going to say, is that I usually invest with my partner, and who you know very well, Vishal Agarwal, who's based in Nairobi. We invest our own capital, Vishal through Full Circle, myself through SM River Ventures. But now we've got a joint vehicle as well called VNR, which we'll do some deals through that as well.
Excellent. VNR, creative name. So one question for you is, so how is Sanjeev your dad? Very difficult for me to understand the reference.
So Sanjeev's a really good friend of mine, and we always have fun whenever I meet up. And one time, to my favorite little Japanese restaurant next to my office, down in the basement, old school, in
London.
Old school, Japanese ladies all running it, and I had like a regular table there, so they knew me very well. And whenever I had a client or a guest, I'd always take them there. It was called Ribbon on Holborn. And I walked in with Sanjeev, and he had a beard, and I was clean shaven. And the lady in charge comes to me and says, "Raj, you brought your father. You brought your father." And so that kind of stuck. So now Sanjeev's known as my dad. Everyone knows him now as my dad. Even his kids know.
Jim, that's not the entire story. He bribed.
Okay, what have I missed out?
I knew there was more.
He bribed this particular lady. And I was told that that's what he does with everybody. So he's got a lot of
Gotcha. Well, it's good to see a father and son team investing together on the Nest. So welcome and thanks. Welcome back. And Raj has been on the Nest on many occasions in the past. Thank you. And over to you, Omer, for first time on the Nest. Really glad you could join us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jim. And apologies, the webcam is stubbornly resisting all efforts to make it work.
That's okay. I can vouch for you that Omer is a very good-looking guy, but that's beside the point.
Be careful. Sanjeev will adopt you as well, okay?
I just like looking at this picture because it's from years ago, and I'm like, oh, that's what I used to look like. Hi, everyone. Omer Imtiazuddin. I'm the managing director for Finca Ventures, which is a early-stage impact investing fund. We've shifted from a pure generalist profile to now focusing on 3 different sector areas, and those are global health, agriculture, and fintech. And then we're also part of Finca International, which is one of the oldest microfinance networks in the world. We own 20 MFIs globally with about $800 million in assets over those 20 MFIs. And then prior to Finca Ventures, I've spent over 20 years in both commercial finance and impact investing. Started my career in investment banking and venture capital in New York before making the shift to the impact investing side. Among other things, I used to run the global health portfolio at Acumen, served as a senior advisor and chaired the investment committee at Grand Challenges Canada. And then just prior to this was leading innovative finance for the Global Health Bureau at USAID. In terms of Finca Ventures, we are quite early stage at this point, although building up to be much larger. Our sort of general investments run from 100,000 to 500,000, with probably 250 being the sweet spot. And then, as I mentioned, on the health side, we are looking fairly globally, and the same goes for fintech. But for the agriculture piece, right now we are restricted towards sub-Saharan Africa.
Gotcha. And so from a Finca perspective, then, are you looking to, you've narrowed it from a generalist outlook to a very specific one, but in the healthcare space, for example, have you made a number of investments in healthcare so far?
We have made 2 investments at this point, but we'll be looking to grow that fairly rapidly. So would expect that just looking at the pipeline, will probably be up to 5 by the end of the year.
Great. Glad to see things are moving very quickly. Well, welcome all 3 of you guys, and we're going to move over to the entrepreneurs in a second. But before that, just a really quick note on the poll here. As you can see, we have pretty broad representation with just a little bit over half coming from Africa, but also a quarter from North America and another 1/5 or so coming from Europe. So very glad to see the geographic diversity for this session. All right, moving on to the presentations.
Thank you, Jim. Srag, it was a magnificent presentation. Hi, everyone. This is Andrew from Bypass, or what we call HealthTag. So let me share the screen with you. HealthTag is Egypt's first health information exchange solution. Well, we see the opportunity is in Egypt, like many countries around the world, healthcare providers and patients rely majorly on paper health records for health information exchange. And paper health records are scattered with low.
Andrew, sorry, could you make the screen like full screen? Sorry.
Yeah. Better now?
Okay.
Perfect. Well, as I've been speaking, that paper health records are being heavily used in information exchange between different healthcare providers. And for paper health records, they are scattered, have low ability to be aggregated, and the data within to be made use of, and they have short life expectancy. And the scattered is not just into the scatter scene is not just into the information exchange or data aggregation, but also an out-of-pocket expenditure on healthcare service. So our solution is mainly to provide a web platform, an infrastructure web platform for healthcare providers to add, store, and share information about their patients, while patients can efficiently manage and access their information, receive more data-driven quality care, and smartly spend more money on their healthcare services. What we provide for healthcare providers is more of a people-centric solution. So we do not provide a clinic management solution or a hospital information system, but more of a physician portal that they can use in any clinic they are working in or any hospital they are working in. And through this portal, they can add and view their patient information. They can exchange information with other physicians and insert e-prescription, request lab and radiology studies. And this is simply by scanning and assigning an identity to this physical card. For the patient or the people, they can have a physical card, a mobile app, and a web app, so they can read all their electronic medical records. They can add previous paper medical records just by taking photos of them, and can easily pay for healthcare services like lab tests or medications directly through the app in exchange for discounts up to 70% in labs and up to 15% in pharmacies. This is the HealthTag. It's a physical card, and we decided to go for a bare minimum of physical card, and in addition to the physical card, another patient mobile app. So the solution can be tailored for the tech-savvy population and the non-tech-savvy population. Our business model is multi-sided. So we commission labs and pharmacies for 3 to 5% on e-prescriptions performed through HealthTag, and for the patients, we charge them for 50 Egyptian pounds, around $3.50 annually, to receive the HealthTag and keep using it. For the past period, or let's say a year and a half, we have grown our network for more than 2,500 healthcare providers. We have grown our base of HealthTag holders to more than 20,000 HealthTags. We have completed more than 50,000 transactions. We have pretty big corporates as our customers, including Etisalat, the third largest telecommunication company in Egypt. We have also Lockton as an insurance brokerage reselling HealthTag to corporates. This is our milestone for the next year, and we have successfully closed our past round for $1 million. This is us. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for the presentation and really good timing, just under 5 minutes. Now over to the investor panel for questions and comments.
So thank you very much for the presentation. And I think I understand fully the gap that you are trying to sort of cater to. The one big question I have, because as an user and as obviously having sort of seen how these things work, there is clearly a need for reachable, accessible, integrated medical data, right? For helping with early diagnosis, seeing patterns, probably helping the insurance companies, etc. Now, if that's what you're doing, and I think that's what you're doing, how does it work from a data confidentiality and data access point of view? Who gets access to it on what basis?
Perfect. So yes, there is a worldwide need for a neutral, democratized ownership of unified patient identity. And what we do is we keep our neutrality so that the healthcare provider and the patient each own their copy of the health records. so that people can use their identity and health records in different healthcare providers. So they can go to any hospital, any clinic, any pharmacy, any lab, and even subscribe to any insurance company. So in order to have this sort of neutral, centralized health records, we have to be very cautious when it comes to privacy and security, and to assess how ourselves have accessibility to such data. So we are de-identifying the identifier of the person, and we only have accessibility to raw data and not linking it with anyone. And the only one that can link their identity to their data is the card holder. So this acts as a key to identify information to health records. So I believe this answers your question about who owns the data and how us as a company have accessibility to such data.
Yeah, okay. And sorry, since I have got the opportunity to ask you a quick question, which I should have asked in the first place, how does the revenue model work?
As explained, well, we work directly with physicians. In Egypt and most African countries, we rely heavily on private clinics. So we start by onboarding the physician with a physician portal, and the physician starts acts like a distribution unit or a channel for us to issue health tags for their patients, each and every new patient coming to them. So we don't charge physicians anything, but we charge the pharmacy and the lab with a commission of 3 to 5% for the referral of the patients for them, and the patient goes to our network of healthcare providers of pharmacies and labs, because they get a commission. They get an instant discount by showing their health tag.
Andrew, thanks for a good presentation. You and I have met before.
Definitely, Raj.
In full transparency, I met Andrew February, was it February?
It was March.
March.
Yes.
So Vishal, myself, and Geeta actually met Andrew. And I hope you don't mind me saying, Andrew, we passed on and I gave you some feedback as to why we passed. And one of the feedbacks I gave you, and I hope you'd be okay with me sharing, was that I was concerned about the team, some of the qualifications of the team, and maybe you can help us around that. I was also concerned about the business model and how much traction you're going to give. Now, obviously, since March, we're now almost at the end of July. Can you help me through where you got to with just those 2 points? There are other things as well. We don't need to talk about that. But those are two things that stick in my mind as one of the reasons that we passed, right? So can you help me with those two things?
Well, the team is more mature now. We have a dedicated product team. Ex startups in Egypt like Wazzaf, Breadfast, and many other startups in the product and technology team. And for the business and commercial team, we have successfully hunted different calibers from the insurance industry, as we believe they have some similarities with what we do, and we have landed our corporate partnership managers from insurance, from Pupa insurance company, and we have landed Mustafa from banking sector, and I believe they are adding great value to the commercial team of ours. And
can you, okay, great. Can you just talk me to what were your numbers when I saw you in March, and what are your numbers today? What's the month-on-month growth?
In March, we was having active health tag holders of 15,000 of total issued health tags, and now we have more than 20,000 active health tag of total issued health tags. We have closed 2 major deals with Saad and the Ministry of Social Solidarity of total health tags around 80,000. health tags for a marginalized community of the deaf and mute, because this is some sort of the perfect use case to use health tags.
And your customer acquisition cost is what?
For the clinic, it's 1,800 Egyptian pounds, and for the patients, it's less than 5 Egyptian pounds.
And what's the US dollar? $1 is how many Egyptian pounds?
For the patient, around
Well, what's in US dollars? Just help me with US dollars.
30 cents.
30 cents. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Andrew, for the presentation.
Thank you.
I guess one question, the sort of electronic, health market is quite fragmented, although some larger players are emerging. But all of these countries seem to have a lot of companies trying to do the same thing. I guess what, in your mind, is differentiating you from your competitors? That's my first question.
Well, these questions about competitors assume that we have a direct competitor, but our main competitor is the paper and pen, because in Egypt we have less than 3% of total clinics using a clinic management solution. And the rest of the clinics are relying mainly on papers for information exchange. So we compete directly with the paper, and for other softwares that use or introduce clinic management software, what we have is that we use unified patient identity that's built for information exchange. So other software, they host data on-prem without any feedback or data added by different healthcare providers. On the other hand, we do not charge physicians. We provide them with a free physician portal so they can access patients' information added by different healthcare providers with other physicians, labs, and pharmacies. And we extend the value of using HealthTag to the physician patients, so they can position themselves as market leaders and increase the value of that their patients are receiving.
Okay, and on the patient level, I guess, how are you acquiring those patients? Is it more through the physicians' offices that you partner with them and they then issue the health tag to their patient? Or I understand you have some partnerships with the insurance companies, but much like the paper records issued, I imagine most of the country isn't insured either. So I guess how is that connection being made? So
for the past year, we were focusing on getting patients only from physician clinics. But as you have mentioned, less than 2 million Egyptians out of 103 million Egyptians having health insurance. So we have started to tackle the business-to-business model, and we have closed many deals in this area by directly selling HealthTag as a health benefit card to the companies and corporates, increasing our customer base and giving us more leverage when it comes to negotiations with healthcare providers, and also landing new physicians.
Okay. And then I guess at the physician or clinic level, like what size of clinic sees this as intriguing and is the easiest to acquire? Because at least when we've sort of due diligence to other business models, we have seen that with larger hospitals, it either takes well over a year for them to actually integrate any type of system. And with others, they're looking for a more full-featured seat, which companies like Epic, for instance, can provide. So I guess what's your sort of key demographic in terms of the clinics or the doctors?
I believe we are focusing on physicians more than clinics and where they work. So instead of competing with Epic and Cerner, all script on providing an HIS solution, and they are selling it for more than $5 million US. We are targeting physicians in their private clinics, and was getting more physicians addicted to the platform, the behavior and utilization of HealthTag physician portal. Later on our product roadmap, we are trying to provide hospitals with a super account that they can access more information about their healthcare personnel as an HIS solution, or a replacement for an HIS solution. So our main focus now is physicians and their private clinics at the individual level.
Okay, great, thanks.
Sorry, Jim, can I just ask a couple of questions here?
Please jump in.
So Andrew, I'm going to try and phrase this as I think, because I'm not entirely sure whether it's a question or a concern, or probably both. Intuitively, I believe the way the medical industry works, especially in countries like India, where I come from, or African countries where I obviously have lived and worked, and Egypt is perhaps no exception, is that hospitals, pharmacies, doctors tend to be very, very monopolistic or very, very control oriented, and do not like, because they feel that this is like a threat to either their judgment or their ability to control the client, being the patient. But they don't like central databases. They do not put enough information. Even within the same hospital, I've seen evidence that a patient's cardiac medical history is not exactly updated as much as it should be. And when the patient goes to another side of the hospital for another problem, that cardiac history is not exactly being seen in its fullest form. So how do you change that behavior? Because it's a behavior issue here. And the second point I want to make, and this is more about me getting my head around it if I can, is you saying that your revenue comes from commissions on usage of hospital, doctors, or pharmacies. Why would they want to give you that commission? What is the positive behavior that is being generated by them saying, okay, I'll pay these guys? Is it because they feel they'll get more patients? Because again, intuitively, they should think that it kind of opens them up for more competition. So as I said, I'm not entirely sure if it's a question, but it was playing on my mind, and I thought I'd share it with you.
Well, I believe that this behavior of being monopolistic is not limited to India, Africa, or more countries. It's even in the States where they are using where more than 99% are using electronic health record. There is still no health information exchange. In the UK, if the patient is receiving a healthcare service in an HS clinic, they can't get their data if they are dealing with a private clinic. So it's a worldwide behavior. But we see that there are a lot of initiatives and companies in the world are aggregating information to a unified patient identity. And I believe that resistance to behavior and change is pretty common. But what we do in Egypt is that we start by changing the behavior from paper to electronic. That's built for exchange. In the States, for example, they changed the behavior from paper to electronic that's stored on premises. And now with Apple Health launched a year and a half ago, aggregating all information in Apple Health app in the States. Picnic Health in UK is aggregating all information in one app. And instead of this, we are maybe lucky to introduce electronic health record that's built from ground up for exchange. So this is a thing. Also, you have mentioned that hospitals are pretty resistant to information exchange, and this is true. And this is what we have faced in the early days of us. So we were trying to onboard hospitals, but for their business reasons, they wanted to control patients by owning their information. And instead of this, we went directly for physicians because it's easier sale, faster sale, and they they share the same concern of owning information, because if they are adding information in a hospital information system, they can't access this information if they are treating the same patient at their private clinic or in another hospital. So this tremendously hinder the quality of healthcare. So we democratized the ownership of health records, and to do so, we had to go for the people directly and get them see the value of unifying patient identity and owning their own health records. And I hope this was an answer.
No, thank you.
Thanks for your questions.
There cannot be too much of a clever answer to behavioral change. It's something you either believe will happen or it won't happen. So thank you.
Thanks for that. And Raj, Omer, if you have any additional questions, love to hear them. Otherwise, we'd love to hear your comments on whether you would be interested in continuing the conversation or even making a commitment.
I had one additional
Please.
question. Andrew, I'm sort of intrigued by the card aspect of it, given that it is physical. I'm curious whether you've approached, I know obviously private healthcare does account for over 50% of services, but the government still has a reasonable share. And I'm curious whether you've approached anyone at the Ministry of Health level, where they also, obviously are using mainly pen and paper, and whether this would be interesting to them, especially given the literacy rate issue that this might solve.
Well,
and can I add? Sorry, Andrew, a follow-on question to that. Is the card thing an interim thing, and will you move to like an app, or is this just a customer acquisition strategy? Because it feels like a card thing, is not long term. It doesn't feel like you're going to be using cards in 5-10 years time. What's your transition from the card? I feel like the card thing is good now, but I feel like you need to think beyond the card, right? Because I think if you're a guy with a smartphone, you don't want to carry another card, right? You want to have it on your app on your phone, right?
Good. So if I may answer this, starting with Omer's question and then Raj. Well, for the Ministry of Health, yes, we have reached them for sure, and they are pretty occupied with combating COVID and getting the rollout of vaccination to the whole nation. And I believe that we are focusing on getting more market share in the private market, because the private or the out-of-pocket expenditure is high in Egypt, more than 70%. And to start really giving value for the public sector, I believe we need to have a significant market share in the private sector. And for Raj's question, for if this thing of the card is a long term or not, I believe that in HealthTag, our decisions are being more people centric and focused. So the technology, the app, the card, it's the USSD codes, anything is a mean of channeling this value you are giving to the people. And yes, all of us here have smartphones, but HealthTag serves in cases of emergency, serves and whenever you go to a pharmacy or a lab on regular basis, and for many things. But smartphones is some sort of tricky devices that can give you a lot of possibilities, but in cases of emergency, they might get broken or stolen. Even the rollout of only apps, of only focused apps, is a bit hard for people to change. So people are relying and using paper all the time, and we can just get paper out of their hands and give them nothing. So they won't feel comfortable or trusting that the service they are getting is is trustworthy. Maybe it's in 10 years it becomes it becomes only app solution, but I believe in the next 5 years it shall be around the physical card for all people, the tech savvy guys and the non-tech savvy guys, those who can afford a smartphone and those who cannot, because we believe that health is more of a right, not a commodity.
Thank you very much for that answer, Andrew. Love to hear from the investor panel on what they think about HealthTag and the potential investing.
I feel I should go last.
Yeah. So I think I made that probably clear in my first remarks. I actually quite like this model. I think it's much needed and it's got universal application. So yeah, in principle, I think I'll be talking to Andrew about this a little more. I'm concerned about and maybe it's my cynicism about the medical industry, but collaboration doesn't seem to be one of their fortes. And that is what I'll try and understand from Andrew, what the experience has been. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And the healthcare sector is always tricky, given that it's sometimes very difficult to understand. So well done. Great. Glad to hear that, Sanjeev. Omer.
Yeah, from my side, Raj, to your point on shifting from cards, while you would think everything would be phone-based, it is true that I still carry my insurance card in my wallet. And when I go to any doctor or healthcare provider, they always ask, do you have your insurance card with you? So even in the US, we are still clinging to that system. I would be interested in learning more. I'm intrigued, and certainly it's a very pressing problem. We've had conversations with even the largest hospital in the Southern Hemisphere in South Africa, and 90% of their processes are still pen and paper, shockingly. So certainly a pressing issue. I think my one feedback would be, we have looked, I will caveat with, 4 other companies in this space and did pass on all of them. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to management team execution ability. And so I think we'd really, as we, if we did proceed further with due diligence, I think would really be looking at what amount of traction you've managed to build over the last, since founding, and then what that growth trajectory looks like. But yes, would certainly be interested in learning more.
Great. Good to hear. And finally to you, Raj.
So Andrew, good presentation. Thank you very much. Look, I think where I am is, I like what you're doing. I think there's a huge need for what you're doing in terms of records and all the rest of it. I still am not convinced about the ability to scale quickly, but I think where I left you in March was that I'm really glad I'm invested in you through the 2 funds that I'm invested in, right? So I already am invested in Andrew. So this is a I don't want to overexpose myself by not giving you another check. Okay, so look, let me put it this way. I'm happy that we're invested in you. Okay, so I don't think I'm going to invest in you anymore. I think I gave you some feedback last time, which still applies today. I'm curious whether you can tell me and whether you can tell the audience how much you're raising now, or whether this is at what valuation, because we had a conversation about valuation as well, which we don't need to get into today. And if you're able to share that today, that would be great. But that's where I am.
Thank you very much, Raj. And,
thank you, Raj.
Congratulations, Andrew, for a very positive response, I think, especially, again, given the fact that you're in the healthcare sector, which can be very difficult. And the public reaction, too, has been quite interesting. Public reaction has over 60% of the respondents indicating that they would be interested in putting in a check. So congratulations for that positive outcome. And I wish you the best of luck in your future fundraising.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Raj, Sanjeev, Omar, Jim, Rag, and Kayan. Thank you, everyone.
Well, that brings us to the top of the hour, or a little bit over an hour today. Thanks to, yes, the panelists, Raj and Sanjeev and Omar, for being on the investor panel, and also to Andrew and Sarag for taking the time to pitch, and everybody else for joining us. Just to note, we host virtual, in-person, and in-country events throughout the world, North America, Europe, Middle East, and of course, Africa. And our next online event will be 2 weeks from now on August 5th, where we will be hosting a clubhouse discussion about about a topic relevant to investing in entrepreneurship in Africa. And then the next pitch session will be on August 19th, the third Thursday. You can find out more about all of this and sign up for our newsletter at untapped-global.com, or just follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter at Untapped Global. With that, thank you everybody for their time, and we'll see you next time.